Okay, we're going to talk about how to write linear equations for parallel lines. So they are going to give you a point and you have to be parallel to a specific graph line. So here are some images. Remember, parallel lines, you know that as two lines that do not intersect, but now we're going to look at how we can make that connection with slope in writing those equations, because that's why these lines do not intersect, why they go the same direction, and it all has to tie in with your slope. So let's look at how we write an equation. So we're going to revisit some familiar information. So we see y equals mx plus b. That's how we're going to write our final equation. So we have to have a slope and we're going to have a y-intercept. So what do we need to know about slope? That parallel lines have the same slope. They keep the same slope. So the slope of one line is going to be the exact same slope in the parallel line, the second line. We also need an ordered pair because we have to go through a specific ordered pair, and we're going to use that ordered pair, that input and output value, to find our y-intercept, because we're going to plug in our input value for x and we're going to plug in our output value for y, and we already know our slope because we're going to be told the slope in our other equation, and we're going to plug that slope in and we're going to solve for b, which is exactly what is written here. So if you don't know how to find b, you need to read these 3 steps and it tells you what to do. So we're going to look on the back for some examples. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we are just going to identify the parallel slope. So I want to know what the slope is of all 3 of these equations so that I can identify a slope that would be used in a parallel line. So the first one we have to do is we have to do some rearranging. So I've got negative 3y equals negative 15 minus 10x, and we're going to end up dividing by a negative 3 all the way across. Okay, so y equals, that is going to be 5, and then 10 divided by 3 is not going to divide in evenly, so I'm going to simplify my ratio. Well, 10 divided by 3 is not going to simplify, so this is going to be plus 10 thirds x. And I want to identify my slope, and so y equals mx plus b. Slope is by the x value, so my slope for parallel lines, they are going to keep the same slope. Okay, so if I needed a line parallel to this line, I would have to have the same slope, which means my slope has got to be a positive 10 thirds. They have the same slope. The 2 lines that are parallel have the same slope. Okay, let's look at this one. Y equals 3/4 x plus 9. I notice it's in y equals mx plus b, so I know that the slope is 3/4, and if this is parallel to another line, I know that their slopes have to be the same. So the slope that I need in my second line to be parallel is 3/4. If my slope is not 3/4, then these 2 graph lines cannot be parallel. Okay, 7x plus 2y equals negative 10. So I've got 2y equals negative 10. And then I got to decide, do I need to add or subtract 7x to both sides? Minus 7x. And then I'm going to divide by 2. Y equals negative 5. And 7 divided by 2 is not going to divide evenly. And 7 divided by 2, or 7 halves, is not going to simplify, so it's going to stay minus 7 halves x. And I need to identify my slope, negative 7 halves. And so now I need to find a slope that will make a line parallel to this line. And parallel lines keep the same slope, so my other slope has to also be negative 7 halves.